All right, OpenAI. It feels like it's everywhere you look these days. ChatGPT writing poems, Dali making those crazy images, and now Sora can make videos.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's straight out of science fiction, right? But with all this power, don't we have to, think about the rules a bit? What are we even allowed to do with all this stuff?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in the wow factor, but we also need to understand the ground rules. The good news is OpenAI has actually put it all out there, terms of service, privacy stuff, even their take on patents and plugins.
Right, it's all there. But let's be real. Who has time to read through all those documents? They're, super dense.
Exactly.
So that's where we come in, right? We've dug through it all, so you don't have to think of
Yeah.
this deep dive as your cheat sheet to OpenAI. What can you actually create with this stuff? What are the limits? And probably most importantly, what happens if something goes wrong?
I think what's really cool is how these documents, they give you a glimpse into OpenAI's whole philosophy. They're not just building tools. They're trying to figure out how we're going to interact with this whole new kind of intelligence.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. OpenAI keeps talking about this input and output thing. Sounds simple enough, but I feel like it's pretty important to how we actually use these AI tools.
Yeah, for sure. So input, that's pretty much anything you put into the system. Text, pictures, code, anything. And output is what the AI spits back out based on what you told it to do. I mean, it seems obvious, but here's the kicker. OpenAI actually gives you the copyright to that output. They're basically saying you made it, you own it.
Hold on, really. So if I use ChatGPT to write a song, I actually own the rights to that song. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it has huge implications, doesn't it? Think of the possibilities. But then it also brings up all these questions about ownership in the AI age. What if someone else gets practically the same output, even though their input was different? It's almost like, well, you know that saying, there's nothing new under the sun. Now the sun is like a massive computer.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we define creativity when AI is involved. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Privacy? Big concern these days with any kind of tech, especially something as powerful as OpenAI. What do we need to know about that?
OpenAI's privacy policy, on the surface, it seems pretty standard. They use data to make their services better, keep things safe, all that legal stuff. But there's one line in there that's worth paying attention to. They use your content. That means the input you give them to train their models. So that weird poem you wrote could end up making ChatGPT an even better poet.
That's kind of cool, but also kind of creepy. All my random thoughts are feeding this giant AI brain. Is there any way to, opt out of that?
Actually, yeah. OpenAI has a form on their help center specifically for that, or you can email them directly if you prefer. So you do have some control over how they use your data, which is a good thing.
Okay, good to know. So we've covered input, output, and the privacy angle. Let's talk about plugins. This is where things get really wild, right? It's like OpenAI is not just building these amazing tools. They want them to be connected to, the entire digital world.
Exactly. Plugins basically let ChatGPT talk to other apps and websites. So imagine you're planning a trip. You could turn on a travel plugin and have ChatGPT book your flights, reserve your hotel, even recommend restaurants based on what you like, all just by talking to it.
Wait, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So ChatGPT goes from being this awesome writing tool to a full-on personal assistant.
Basically, yeah. And it's not just travel either. OpenAI is talking about plugins for real-time stock updates, searching through research papers, even controlling your smart home stuff. The possibilities seem kind of endless.
Wow. But with great power comes great responsibility, or whatever. What about security? If ChatGPT can access my bank account or mess with my thermostat, that's a whole other level of trust we're talking about.
You're right. That's a really important point. And OpenAI's terms are pretty clear about that. You're the one who's responsible for choosing and managing those plugins. They're not liable for what happens when you connect those third-party apps to ChatGPT.
So it's kind of like a buyer beware situation.
Exactly. You get to connect these powerful AI tools to your whole digital life, but you got to be careful about what you allow. Read the fine print, figure out what data you're sharing. Don't just click accept without thinking.
Okay, good advice. Now, before we go any further, I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. This all sounds super powerful, even a little scary. Is there a limit to what OpenAI can do? And what happens if things go wrong?
That's where OpenAI's stance on liability comes in. They're really upfront about the fact that their services are as is. No guarantees about accuracy, no promises about safety. They even have limits on how much they'll pay if something goes wrong. because of their tech.
Whoa, okay, that's a little sobering. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement and forget that this is still pretty new territory.
It's a good reminder, though, right? We can't just blindly trust AI. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be misused or it can malfunction. In the end, it's up to us, the users, to be smart about it, use it responsibly.
Makes sense. Okay, so we talked about input, output, we've done the privacy thing, even touched on plugins. But there's one last piece of the puzzle I want to look at before we move on. OpenAI and patents.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. OpenAI has a pretty unique take on patents. They basically promise to only use them defensively. They don't want to use patents to stifle innovation in the AI field.
Hold on, are they saying they won't use patents to shut down their competitors or stop others from building on what they've done?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're saying, we're confident enough in our tech that we don't need to be aggressive with patents. It's a bold move.
Makes you wonder about their long-term strategy, doesn't it? Are they trying to be the good guys in the AI race?
Maybe. Or maybe they genuinely believe that open collaboration is the best way to get good outcomes for everyone. It's definitely an interesting approach.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this first part of our deep dive, we've covered a lot. We've looked at how OpenAI defines input and output, got into the whole privacy and plugins thing, and even uncovered their approach to patents and liability. But we've really only scratched the surface.
Right.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah. So welcome back to our deep dive into the world of OpenAI. In part 1, we kind of laid out the rules of the game, right? Now I think it's time to see how it's actually being played. How are people using these crazy, powerful AI tools out in the real world?
Right, exactly. We talked about input and output and plugins and all that foundational stuff, but let's get down to brass tacks. Where are we seeing OpenAI actually making a difference, like real-world impact?
Well, the workplace is a good place to start, I think. ChatGPT is already changing the way people work, writing emails, putting together presentations, even coding software. It's almost like having a superhuman assistant who's always on.
No kidding. I've heard stories about, like, marketers using it to come up with ad copy, lawyers using it to draft contracts, even therapists using it to go through patient notes. Yeah. It feels like everybody's trying to figure out how to harness this tech.
And that's the key word right there, harness.
Yes.
The most successful ways people are using OpenAI aren't about replacing humans altogether. It's more about amplifying what we can do, working smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah, okay. So it's not this humans versus AI thing, but more like a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Humans and AI working together.
Exactly. Think about it. ChatGPT can help you get past writer's block. It can summarize those super long reports, even translate languages instantly. It frees up your time and brain power so you can focus on the stuff that really needs a human touch, Critical thinking, creativity, empathy, things AI can't really do. Yet, at least.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move beyond the workplace. What about education? That seems to be a hot topic when it comes to AI.
It is, for sure. And there are strong opinions on both sides. I mean, the potential is huge, right? Personalized learning, instant feedback, making education more accessible to students who, maybe live in remote areas or don't have access to the best resources. Imagine a world where every student has a virtual tutor that can tailor their lessons to exactly what they need.
That sounds amazing. But I also see the potential for, problems. What about cheating? If a student could just ask ChatGPT to write their essay, what's even the point of assigning essays anymore?
That's a valid concern. And it's definitely forcing educators to rethink how they evaluate learning. We need to figure out ways to test understanding that go beyond just spitting back facts. It's more about, critical thinking, problem solving, creative expression. Those are skills AI can't really fake.
So another balancing act. We have to find ways to use the power of AI without shooting ourselves in the foot.
Exactly. It's a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. We can completely rethink how we approach education in the 21st century.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we've talked about work, we've talked about school, but OpenAI's influence goes way beyond that, right? I mean, what about the creative arts?
Oh, now this is where things get really interesting. AI tools like Daily and Sora are totally blurring the lines between human creativity and, machine creativity. Musicians are using AI to help them write songs. Artists are using it to create these surreal landscapes. You even have filmmakers using AI to make entire animated movies. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Seriously. But it also brings up some tricky questions, like if an AI creates a piece of music, who owns the rights to it? Is it the person who gave the AI the instructions? Is it the people who built the AI? Or is it, the AI itself?
Those are the questions that are keeping lawyers and philosophers up at night, I think. I mean, the legal and ethical frameworks around AI-generated art are still being figured out. It's a work in progress.
Feels like we're in uncharted territory here.
Hmm.
What are some of the downsides or risks we should be thinking about when it comes to AI and creativity?
One thing that worries some people is this idea of homogenization. If everyone's using the same AI tools, are we going to end up with less diversity in art? Will everything start to look and sound the same?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's almost like we need to be careful that AI doesn't end up stifling human creativity, right? We should be using these tools to make our own unique voices stronger, not replace them altogether.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. Another worry is the potential for misuse. AI-generated content could be used to spread fake news, create deepfakes, or even just generate stuff that's offensive or harmful. We need to be aware of those risks and figure out ways to prevent them.
Right, so we have to be smart about it. Okay, so we've talked about how OpenAI is being used in the workplace, in education, and in the creative arts. We've also touched on some of the risks and the ethical questions that come with all of this. But I think it's important to remember, this technology is still really new. What we're seeing now is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's impossible to say for sure how AI is going to shape our world in the future. But one thing's for sure, it has the potential to be incredibly beneficial, but also incredibly disruptive. It's really up to us to guide its development and make sure it's used for good.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about. This deep dive has taken us from the technical nitty-gritty to real-world examples and potential pitfalls. I'm honestly feeling a little overwhelmed, but also kind of excited about the possibilities.
I think that's the perfect way to feel. It's both awe-inspiring and a little bit scary, right? But that's what makes it so fascinating to talk about.
Okay, so as we wrap up this second part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. If OpenAI really is all about benefiting all of humanity, like they say, what role do we each play in making that happen? What are our responsibilities as, users, creators, citizens in this new age of intelligent machines?
That's the question, isn't it? It's something we all need to grapple with, and it's something we're going to keep exploring as we move into the final part of our deep dive. Join us as we wrap things up and share some final thoughts and resources to keep the conversation going.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking all about OpenAI, the rules, what you can do with it, what it all means. Honestly, I'm still processing everything. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, no kidding. We've gone pretty deep, haven't we? Copyright stuff with AI, those plugins, and all their potential risks, even the ethics of AI-generated art.
Right, so as we wrap this whole thing up, I'm really curious to hear your big picture take. What does it all actually mean? What are the big things we should be thinking about as we're, figuring out this whole world of AI?
Well, if I had to pick one thing to emphasize, it's that AI isn't some far-off thing anymore. It's here right now. And it's changing how we do, well, pretty much everything. The way we work, how we learn, even how we express ourselves creatively. AI is changing the rules of the game, no doubt about it.
I'm with you there, and it's happening so fast. Every day it feels like there's some new breakthrough or some new application or even a new problem to worry about. How do we keep up with all of it? And how do we make sure we're using this stuff responsibly, ethically, all that?
You've hit the nail on the head. There's no easy answer to that. But I think a big part of it is just being aware. We need to understand how this tech actually works, what it can and can't do, and what could happen, both the good and the bad stuff.
Awareness. Got it. What else? Any other words of wisdom for our listeners who are trying to wrap their heads around all this AI stuff?
Be curious. Don't just accept everything you hear at face value, whether it's all sunshine and rainbows or doom and gloom. Dig a little deeper, do your own research, and form your own conclusions.
I like that. It's easy to get caught up in the headlines, whether it's AI is going to save the world or AI is going to destroy us all, right? We need to be critical thinkers, not just, passively swallowing whatever's thrown at us.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Play around with some of these AI tools, see what they can do. You might even find ways to use them in your own life or your work. Who knows?
That's a great point. Best way to learn is by doing right. But also, always remember, be careful out there. We've talked about the risks of privacy issues, security breaches, even the whole misinformation problem. We've got to be aware of those dangers and use these tools responsibly.
Absolutely. And last but not least, talk about it. Have conversations with your friends, your family, your coworkers, whoever. Share what you're thinking, what you're worried about, what you're excited about. This isn't just some tech thing. It affects all of us, right? So let's make sure our voices are heard.
I love that. This isn't something that's just happening to us. We get to help shape how it all unfolds.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's like a story that's still being written, and we all get to be a part of it.
That's such a great way to think about it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of OpenAI, let's remember we're not just watching from the sidelines. We're all in this together. Let's explore the possibilities, be mindful of the risks, and work together to make sure AI benefits everyone.
Well said. Thanks for coming along on this journey with us. Hope you found it helpful, maybe even got you thinking a little differently.
And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and stay involved. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the world of tech. Until then, keep exploring.